Today, we're going to talk about something pretty incredible. It's a story about a single court decision that ended up creating this massive $70 billion ripple effect. And we're going to show you exactly how that wave travels all the way back to your wallet. So you have to ask, right? How can just one ruling from a court actually reshape the entire US economy? I mean, we tend to think of the economy as this giant, slow-moving ship. But what this story shows is how one single legal decision can be like a stone tossed into a quiet pond, sending out waves that go way, way further than anyone ever saw coming. Let's trace that first ripple. And here it is. This is where the whole thing kicks off. The US Supreme Court makes a decision, and just like that, a major government tariff program is declared invalid. That one moment, that single action set off the entire chain reaction we're about to dive into. Okay, so first up, let's look at the immediate fallout from this ruling. You see, the government was counting on a steady stream of cash from these tariffs, but the court's decision, it basically just turned off the spigot, instantly. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it's a real double whammy. It's not just that the government isn't getting any more money from these tariffs in the future. Oh no. Suddenly, all the money it had already collected is now considered illegal. And that creates a massive financial liability, literally, overnight. So this one legal decision immediately blows a giant hole in the government's budget. And when I say giant, I'm not kidding. We are talking about a $70 billion problem. Okay, so check this out. This chart really shows you the crazy journey this money went on. So first, when the tariffs were put in place, companies passed that extra cost right on to you and me, the consumers. We paid higher prices. Then the corporations took that extra money, paid it to the government, and now, because the program is invalid, those same corporations get to claim a full refund from the government. And this quote it nails it. It really gets to the heart of the whole thing. You, the consumer, paid the higher prices. But the refund? That's going straight back to the corporations. The money that came out of your pocket is now on a fast track back to their balance sheets. So here's the bottom line. The scale of this is just staggering. We're talking about an estimated $70 billion in refunds. And, this isn't magic money. It has to come from somewhere. It gets added directly to the national deficit, which means the government has to issue even more debt to cover it. All right, so you've got billions and billions of dollars suddenly changing hands. The big question is, who actually comes out ahead here? Let's break down the winners and the losers in this whole economic shuffle. This table really gives us a crystal clear snapshot. And listen, don't expect the prices you pay at the store to go down. Companies have very little incentive to lower them now. For corporations, though, this is a huge win. It's a massive cash infusion that might even spark a little economic growth. But for you, the consumer, it's a net negative. Those higher prices you paid, yeah, they're probably here to stay. What this whole tariff story really does is pull back the curtain on a much deeper, much bigger conflict that's been brewing. The real story here, it isn't actually about tariffs at all. It's about debt, and it's about a high-stakes standoff between the government and the central bank. See, in the grand scheme of things, this whole $70 billion tariff mess, it's just a symptom of a much larger problem. The real fundamental issue is this massive, ever-growing mountain of national debt that has to be constantly refinanced, day in and day out. This just digs that hole another $70 billion deeper. And this is where you can see the two sides just pulling in completely opposite directions. On one side, you've got fiscal policy. That's the government. It needs to borrow more and more money just to cover its spending. But on the other side, you've got monetary policy, the central bank, which is supposed to maintain discipline and keep the system from boiling over. They are on an absolute collision course. So that's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? When you have a government that has to borrow and a central bank that wants to be disciplined, who's going to blink first? So how is this all likely to end? Well, if you look at past cycles, market analysts are predicting a pretty specific and familiar sequence of events. Here's pretty much how the playbook goes. The central bank tries to be disciplined, right? It tightens the money supply. But that creates short-term pain. Markets get volatile. Risky assets take a nosedive. That pain creates immense economic and political pressure, which forces the central bank to do a complete 180. They eventually give in, they capitulate, and they pump more liquidity back into the system to calm things down. And guess what? The markets recover. And really, this is the bottom line. The whole system has become so dependent on debt and easy money that any serious attempt by the central bank to pull back that liquidity, well, it risks triggering a full-blown financial crisis. So their hands are, for all intents and purposes, tied. Which brings us to this final critical question. This tariff ruling, it just dumped another $70 billion onto the pile, but it's just one piece of a much, much bigger trend. In an economic system that seems completely reliant on more and more debt, is the only answer really just to keep creating more money? And what happens when that music eventually stops?